Good morning and welcome to another midweek vlog. So I hope you're all doing really well. I've got a bit of hay fever, so if I sneeze you'll know why. I have used my nasal spray and I have taken my antihistamine, but this is my really bad season. Early to mid-June is when it really starts to affect me, and I can't remember whether it's tree pollen or grass pollen, but whichever it is, I really do get a lot of hay fever at this time of year. Anyway, I wanted to tell you a bit about what I've been up to and tell you a little bit about Newcastle in the northeast. I had a fantastic time. We went up last Wednesday. We stayed for 4 nights, and one night we stayed on Lindisfarne, known as the Holy Island, which you can only cross when the tide is out. And that was a real experience. It was absolutely lovely, and I'll put some footage up of our trip. We also went to Alnwick Gardens in the grounds of Alnwick House, which was stunning, absolutely stunning, including this amazing waterfall. And we were so lucky with the weather. The weather was amazing. I don't think it rained the entire time we were there, and it wasn't actually that chilly either. It was fairly warm. I did go into Fenix. They have a great Fenix there, which is a lovely department store, sadly departed in London now, or at least in central London. So I went in there, bought a few bits and bobs, very exciting. And ate really well, fantastic restaurants we went to. If you want to know any really good restaurants in Newcastle, I can recommend, can I remember the names of them? Atelier was one and the Cookhouse was the other. Both really excellent food, not cheap of course, but really delicious. So one of the reasons I just wanted to touch on why I love the Northeast so much, and I'm not connected with it in any way except now through my husband, because his father was from there and also he went to university there and he still has relatives who we went to visit. The other reason I feel not an affinity to it, but the other reason I love it is that when I was probably in my early 20s, I started to watch a series called When the Boat Comes In. And it starred an actor called James Bolam, who had been in The Likely Lads, which I hadn't seen the original series because I was too young. But I had actually met James Bolam when I was very young, because I think he must have acted with my mother. I'm not exactly sure how he came to be at our flat, because I don't remember him being in anything with her. But anyway, I met him and I kind of took a bit of a shine to him, age 7. And I followed his career and I absolutely adored him in When the Boat Comes In. It was a fantastic series set in the Northeast about his character, this young guy who was trying to make his way in a very difficult period. I think it might have been set in the 30s, I'm not sure. Anyway, it was a great series and I absolutely loved it. I also really loved Auf Wiedersehen Pet, which was about a group of builders from the Northeast going to work in Germany. So those of you in the UK, in probably, I'm guessing, Canada, Australia, New Zealand might know it. Those of you in the US might not. But they were wonderful series, incredibly well acted and with great Northeast accents, which I absolutely love. Now, we stayed in a really lovely hotel called the Malmaison, which is a chain of hotels here in the UK. And it's a great hotel and it's got a wonderful view of the Tyne. But hotels are not made for women, are they? They never seem to have mirrors in the right place, the plugs in the right place. Trying to put your makeup on in a hotel room is impossible, especially when it's dark. The hotel didn't have one of those big mirrors jutting out of the wall so blokes can shave and women can make themselves up. Didn't have any of that. Although, as I say, it is a lovely hotel. I like it because it's very unfussy. It's very modern, very unfussy. There's no flounces and furbles and Furbles? I don't think that's a word, is it? Furbelows, that's the word. Anyway, it doesn't have any of that. It's pretty straightforward. If you want a coffee, there are coffee making facilities in the room, but actually there's a Starbucks downstairs, which is really helpful, so you can pop down and get a coffee if you want one. I really like it, but the one thing is the plug sockets are in the wrong place. There's nothing by your bed, so you can't plug your phone in there, and the lighting's rubbish and there are no decent mirrors. However, really enjoyed our stay. It was all good and their breakfasts are really good, really excellent, including their granola. Anyway, enough about the Malmaison. This is not sponsored. I only wish it was. But it just reminded me, and I stupidly forgot to take the mirror that I bought to go with to the Caribbean with me. And in fact, I seem to have mislaid it. This is typical me. Now, one of my lovely subscribers asked me if I'd do a pack with me next time. And actually, I should have done a pack with me, or I intended to do one for this trip, and I completely forgot, and actually I forgot to pack some key things, but I will do a pack with me when I go to Budapest, which is in a couple of weeks' time, because I've just bought a new little suitcase and I'm only taking a carry-on. I'm going on Ryanair, so I have to be super careful about the size of the carry-on, and obviously I have to be super careful about what I pack, so I will definitely do a pack with me with a carry-on in a few weeks' time. Now, one of the things I wanted to touch on today was feeling a fish out of water. And this came into my mind when we were in Newcastle and we passed a group of people playing a game on the beach, actually. I think it was in either Colour Coats or Tynemouth. And I didn't exactly know what the game was. And my husband said, oh, that's rounders. Now, you would think a British woman born in this country would know what rounders was. It is a classic British game. Now, I've heard of it, but I had never played it, don't know the rules, don't know how to play it at all, no idea about it really, except it's a British game that British children, and it seems adults as well, play. Now, why don't I know about it? Well, that's because I went to a French school. My parents decided they wanted me to go to a French school, partly because it happened not to be all that far away from where we lived, and it was a private school, so in this country that means my parents paid, but it was actually quite a reasonably priced school in that it wasn't terribly expensive, and it had a large cohort of French-speaking children, or children whose parents spoke French because they were French, or they were from a French colony, or they were ambassadors' children. So it had quite a mixed bag of not all well-to-do children, because some of their parents who were French went to the school for free. It was a bit like a large mixed comprehensive school, which means here in the UK, a school that is not fee-paying and takes children from the local area. So I went to this school and it was a French-speaking school, so everything was in French from the word go. Maths was in French, science was in French, history was in French, geography, everything. The only thing that wasn't in French was English. Although weirdly, a bit later on, when I was about 11, I think, we started to learn Latin and Spanish I learned as well, in French, if you see what I mean. So we were translating from the French into the Spanish or into the Latin. All very confusing, although it seemed okay at the time because by that time I already spoke fluent French. But what it did mean is that I didn't have any British culture in my schooling. It was all French culture. So the first national anthem I learned, although I think I did know God Save the Queen, was the French national anthem, which I can sing you word perfect to this day, because when we sang the national anthem, we sang the French national anthem first, followed by the British national anthem. Now, any of you who know the French national anthem, and I'm sure you'll all get to know it very well with the Olympics coming up, it is a fantastically rousing national anthem. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. It's so much better than our very, very boring God Save the King now, and sounds more like a dirge. Anyway, I was not steeped in English culture, except of course at home, although even then my father wasn't actually British. He was born in Germany and escaped just before the Second World War. So there was that. However, my mother had gone to a very British boarding school, which was very, as we say in the UK, jolly hockey sticks, and had learnt to play, I don't know if she played rounders, but she'd actually played lacrosse. I suppose I'd be really interested to hear from you if you have felt like a fish out of water like that, because it meant that when I sort of came out into the world and away from the French school, I didn't really have a lot of that sort of British culture in me because I wasn't used to it. So I never played rounders. We didn't have religious instruction at school or religious education. It actually hampered me in two ways. One, I didn't know anything about the Church of England, which, given that this country is technically a Church of England country, even though the numbers of people identifying as C of E is dwindling and church attendance is dwindling. Nevertheless, it is part of our culture, and it would have been good to know a little bit about the history of it. But the other problem actually was interesting because much later on I went on to study French literature at university. Because I didn't know anything about French religion, which is so much part of French literature, I really struggled to understand a lot of French literature to begin with. Anyway, I'd be really interested to know whether you have had any experiences like that. Did you live abroad for a while and were puzzled by some of the practices, or felt that because you didn't understand them, it was too late for you. I have found this with rugby, for example, because my husband's a big sports fan and he loves cricket and rugby. I don't know anything about cricket and rugby because they weren't played at my school. I certainly didn't play them. I love tennis, although I wasn't very good at it, but I did enjoy playing tennis. But rugby and cricket, I have not a clue as to what's going on. I really haven't. And he loves to watch it. So I can't really enjoy watching it with him because I don't know what's going on. And I think it helps if you've played it. Anyway, I'm going off at a tangent now, as I always do. But let me know in the comments, have you got any experiences like that? I know when we talked about friendship last week, I had quite a few viewers saying that they had lived abroad. So I'd be really interested to know, did you manage to integrate when you lived abroad? How difficult was it? How easy was it to feel part of the culture of that particular country? How easy was it or difficult was it to integrate in that country? Now, I want to end finally by touching on the very, very sad news about Michael Mosley's passing. And I'm sure a lot of you who are watching this will know who Michael Mosley was. He was the British doctor who promoted intermittent fasting, which is what I'm actually doing at the moment. I was very shocked about his passing because I felt like I was an early adopter of his, because in 2012 I watched the programme on BBC television about intermittent fasting and I started to try it there and then. And actually that has informed the way I eat over the last, 12 years really. I certainly haven't kept it up over the last 12 years, but I have tried it on and off intermittently actually. And it's all down to him and that programme, and I'll try and see if I can link it below. I'm sure it's going to be reshown. I'm sure there'll be lots of coverage in the UK about him. And I believe he was known in the States a little bit as well and around the world. But that programme was actually not so much about dieting. It was more about how to live longer, as far as I remember. And of course, I'm always interested in those types of programmes because I want to live a long and healthy life. And it was just such a shocker to hear that he'd passed away, because he was, I think, maybe a couple of years younger than me. And of course, his whole shtick in a way was about longevity. So it's terribly sad. And I really felt it because it was almost like I knew him, because I'd seen him so many times on the TV and he's been doing a lot of radio here in the UK as well. And I've got quite a few of his books, including about exercise. And he was just such a voice of reason. He was such a polymath really, because actually if you look at his career, he started out as an investment banker. He studied PPE at Oxford. He went on to work in investment banking. Then he studied medicine and wanted to be a psychiatrist. And then he gave that up after a couple of years and became a BBC trainee producer and produced loads and loads of documentaries long before he started fronting them. And he's very much entwined with those other proponents of healthy living and healthy eating, like Professor Tim Spector and Dr. Chris Van Tulleken. They all knew each other, they all worked with each other, and it's just a terrible, terrible shock to, I'm sure, the medical community and those who are interested in longevity and healthy ways of living. So he will be sorely missed in this country. He really will. But I'm sure that his legacy of living longer and living healthier will live on. So R.I.P. Michael Mosley. And not to end on too negative a note, I am continuing with my intermittent fasting. I had to stop while I was away, but I've carried on. I'm on my black coffee again. I won't be having any breakfast until about 10:30 this morning. I'm keeping to about a 14-hour window of eating. And I will probably stop at 6 or 8 weeks, so it won't be too much longer to find out whether it's actually had any effect. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this ramble on. I really love having these chats with you every week, and I know they're not getting a massive amount of views at the moment, but I enjoy the engagement that we have, but it really helps to inform what you are interested in, and I think that's really helpful to me as a youngish channel that's trying to grow. And if you want to hear more from me, I do have a monthly newsletter which you can subscribe to by clicking the link in the description box. My next video is coming out on Sunday as usual, and if you're new to my channel, I publish videos every Sunday and now every Wednesday as well. And thank you so much for watching. It means the absolute world to me. It really does. And I hope you're all doing really well. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully on Sunday for my next video. Bye.